Welcome back to Analyzing Horror. My name is Lauren, and today we're going to be delving into non-horror for the first time on my channel. So last week in a poll on Instagram, I asked what you guys wanted to see in this week's video, and the winning vote was for top 10 non-horror comfort movies. These are movies that have a very special place in my heart, and I always beeline towards when I'm in need of a good laugh and an overall heartwarming pick-me-up. Also, I wanted to mention that this video will be fully spoiler-free for all of the movies that I mentioned in this list, so don't worry, you're good there. All right, let's dive right in. So like I did in my top 10 comfort horror movies list, we're gonna do ranking, and we're gonna start off at number 10 and work our way down to 1. And feel free to take a guess at what number 1 is in the comments. I'm not really sure anyone could guess. I don't really talk about it a lot on social media, but take a guess if you'd like. All right, starting off with number 10. The Inbetweeners from 2011. So after graduating, 4 socially troubled 18-year-olds from the south of England go on holiday to Malta, Greece on their gap year. So I love this ridiculous movie so much, but a huge reason for that is because I really love the TV show that came before it by the same name. It's a British comedy TV show following these 4 characters as they try to survive secondary school or high school in America. Like, that's one of my all-time favorite comfort TV shows. Like, I just love it so much. Like, it's raunchy and offensive, but I just love it. Like, the humor is incredible, and I love following these characters, Simon, Will, Neil, and Jay. And like I said, the humor is just really funny. Like, it can be dry at times, but also super offensive and raunchy, and I don't get offended easily, so this type of humor really works for me. Like, one character, Jay, is so offensive, but if you watch the show, you understand that he's not just being offensive to be offensive. He's actually incredibly insecure, and him being offensive is actually kind of endearing because you understand that that's him just trying to get attention. And Will, who's the nerdy one, I kind of identify with the most because he's just really dorky, but he's trying to make friends. He's trying to make the best of it. And I just really love how, like, posh he is compared to the rest of his friends are. And then he gets made fun of that. He also brings a briefcase to school on his first day, and he gets made fun of that, of course. And he's also the new kid, and I love that we kind of follow him as the protagonist, and then we get to meet Simon, Jay, and Neil along the way. And so Will is kind of like our narrator throughout the show as well, and then that continues in the movie. And I could talk forever about the TV show, so I'll just say it's on Amazon Prime, by the way, so if you guys want to watch it, it's a really short show. It's only got about 3 seasons and only 6 episodes per season, so it's really bingeable. And then obviously there's a movie after that. So there's a lot of content, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's got like kind of like male friendship, camaraderie, like guy humor, like a little bit offensive and raunchy style. And it's right up my alley. It's one of my favorite shows, as well as this movie is so funny. And personally, I would highly recommend you watch the show before you check out the movie, because I feel like if you just get dropped into these characters without any context, you would think that they're complete assholes. So I think that you should definitely watch the show beforehand, but I also kind of feel like the movie holds up on its own as well. Like, it's just really funny. The characters are great. There are some great moments. They're also partying on their gap year, so it's kind of like a fun, like, party coming of age movie as well. Like, it's just really great. And I know that this is kind of a loaded recommendation, but I highly recommend the 3 seasons of the show and this movie very much. All right, next, number 9. Johnny English from 2003. A lowly pencil pusher working for MI7, Johnny English is suddenly promoted to super spy after Agent 1 is assassinated and every other agent is blown up at his funeral. When a billionaire entrepreneur sponsors the exhibition of the crown jewels and the valuable gems disappear on opening night and on English's watch, the newly designated agent must jump into action to find the thief and recover the missing gems. So this is another British comedy that I love so much. You probably could guess because of Rowan Atkinson starring. I just think he's such a great actor overall. I love him as Mr. Bean and so many other roles that he's been in. Like, I just think he is hilarious. And also his duo with Ben Miller as Buff in this movie is so funny. I just love their friendship and the way that Johnny English, like, interacts with Buff. Like, they are hilarious together, and they're almost always by each other's side in this movie. So it's just, it is so fun and a huge part of the humor in this movie. And they're just both bouncing off of each other because neither one of them really know what they're doing as Agent 1. And so they're just kind of like trying to figure it out. But it's really funny because Johnny English acts like he knows what he's doing when he has no idea. So it's like that kind of humor. And so Johnny says something stupid and gets himself in trouble, and then Buff has to like bail him out. And it's just like that camaraderie that's like really funny, but also kind of sweet at the same time. And John Malkovich plays that entrepreneur, Pascal Sauvage. And I love John Malkovich so much. And it's really funny seeing him play like a Frenchman, kind of like a comedic Frenchman, dare I say. I say comedic mostly because he's in a comedy movie. I don't think he's making fun of French people, but I also really love his accent, and I don't know, I just love John Malkovich, period. And I just love seeing him in this movie because I feel like he's a really diverse actor, and just getting to see him alongside Rowan Atkinson several times in this movie, like, it's just so funny. Also, I forgot to mention that this is another one of those movies that I just had on like an infinite loop on my portable DVD player when I was a teenager. I've seen it so many times. Like, I just loved the humor so much, and it easily became a comfort movie because of that for me. And I can sing the main title song like by heart. I'm very impressive that way. And yeah, just because it was there for me as a teen and it became a comfort movie for me at that time, like nostalgia requires me to call it a comfort movie because I just love it so much. It'll always be there in my heart, and even if I haven't visited in a long time or what have you, it will always be a comfort movie for me just because of the way it was there for me when I was younger, and it will always have that nostalgia aspect for me. Next, number 8. When Harry Met Sally from 1989. So during their travel from Chicago to New York, Harry and Sally debate whether or not sex ruins a friendship between a man and a woman. 11 years later, and they're still no closer to finding the answer. So in general, I'm not a big romance or rom-com kind of person, but this is absolutely my favorite rom-com of all time. It's an absolute classic, and I just love it so much. Like, I love everything about it. Like, to start off, Billy Crystal as Harry, Meg Ryan as Sally, like, these two absolutely carry this movie. But all of the supporting actors are really great as well. And overall, just like the characters in general and the dialogue was so well written. And I also really love how the storyline doesn't seem to like rush you. It takes its time with unfolding the characters, letting you get to know them and their story. And you're also following them through time. Like, Harry and Sally first meet each other when they're traveling from Chicago to New York. And then you keep visiting them as years pass, as they continue to live in New York. They continue to bump into each other along the way. And so it's this really great, like, long winding story that I just really love. And it's just very character oriented. And I love Billy Crystal just in general, but he's really great as Harry. And I think Meg is just adorable as Sally. I love how complicated she is and how laid back he is. And like the contrast between their characters is so funny to me. And I also really love their friendship and camaraderie. I also really love all their jokes and their banter, how often they spend time with each other, and just like their comfort amongst each other. Like, I just really love watching their relationship grow in this movie, and it's just such a comfort. And again, like, the humor is so great. And I love this movie so much. And they just don't make movies like this anymore, you know? It's actually become a tradition on New Year's Eve. I have to watch this movie. There's a scene in the movie on New Year's Eve. So I have to watch it every New Year's Eve. And it's just so sweet and it's so comforting. And it's like almost inspiring in a way, especially whenever you're watching it at the beginning of the year. And one of my favorite lines in the entire movie is actually in that New Year's Eve scene that I just mentioned. And I'll paraphrase real quick. It's something about when you finally realize that you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want the rest of your life to start as immediately as possible. I just find that line so sweet. But yeah, I believe I was introduced to this when I was about a preteen, and I feel like I've been watching it every single year since then. So it's just been around me for a very long time. And again, there's nostalgia with it. And I love it so much. I love the feel of the movie as well. And like I said, the storyline, the characters, like, this movie is fantastic. And even if you're not a big rom-com person, I feel like the comedy and Billy Crystal and just like everything around the rom-com will carry this movie for you. So I highly recommend you just check it out. Even if, like I said, even if you're not a big rom-com fan, just check it out. It's just really funny. Come on. Also, it's got some classic lines that I'm sure you've heard before. So it's worth checking out for sure. All right, next, number 7. Free Guy from 2021. So one day, a bank teller named Guy realizes he is a background character in an open world video game called Free City that will soon go offline. So being such a new movie, this is obviously a recent addition to my comfort movies list, but I loved it so much. The first time I saw it in theaters, I was just absolutely blown away. Like, the characters, the story, the performances, the humor, like the wholesomeness of it all. Like, it's just such a great story and just a perfect movie all around, in my opinion. Especially if you're a gamer. Like, if you play video games, there are a lot of like inside jokes in this movie that you'll be able to get. And I loved that so much. And I just really loved the video game aspect. Like, I'm a gamer, so I just really loved getting to see like the open world video game concept. I loved getting to see like an NPC guy like realize that he's an NPC and then becomes like a main character. Like Ryan Reynolds was so fantastic as Guy, by the way, and I also absolutely love Jodie Comer as Molotov Girl or Millie. By the way, I've mentioned that Anya Taylor-Joy is one of my favorite actresses of all time. Well, Jodie Comer is my number 2 favorite actress of all time. Like, she is incredible, and I love her so, so much. By the way, if you haven't seen the show Killing Eve, get on it because it is incredible and Jodie is astounding in that show. But yeah, individually, Ryan Reynolds and Jodie Comer are fantastic in this movie, but when they team up, like, they are so great together. I love the banter and the way they work off each other just works so perfectly for me. But in addition to the two of them, I think the rest of the cast is just so fantastic. Like, Guy's best friend, Buddy, is so great. It's Little Real Howry from Get Out, and I just really, really love him so much. And also Joe Keery as Keys. I really loved his character. I think a lot of people know him from Stranger Things. Like, he's just really, really great in this. He's really, really funny. I love getting to see him in things that aren't Stranger Things. But like I said earlier, the video game aspect and the overall storyline where Guy realizes he's an NPC and he tries to like break out and do something with his life. Like, I just really love those stories where a character kind of like breaks the mold and tries to do something different. And it's just a very inspiring and wholesome storyline. And the story is just so heartwarming overall. Like, the relationship between Guy and Molotov Girl is so, so sweet. Like, I genuinely tear up at times during this movie. Like, it's just such a sweet movie. But also, like, the friendship between Guy and Buddy, like the male friendship is there too. And just like the inspiration where Guy doesn't want to be an NPC anymore. He wants to be a main character. Like, he wants to do something with his life. Like, I love how inspiring and heartwarming this movie is. And like the entire third act and ending, like, it is just deeply heartwarming, and I genuinely tear up a couple of times in the end there. Like, I just love it, and it's like, it's this weird blend of like inspiring and like love yourself and love the ones around you and like go and get what you want, and just like it has so many great messages and it's really funny. Like, again, Ryan Reynolds is in it, so of course it's gonna be funny, but it is just one of the best movies that I've ever seen in like the last 2 years. It is so, so great. And I highly recommend it. I know some people didn't really care for this movie, wasn't their cup of tea, and that's totally cool. But it worked for me so, so much. Also, Jacksepticeye is in this, by the way. If you guys watch Jacksepticeye, he's in this. He does a little cameo. It's so freaking cool. So again, if you're a gamer, if you like Ryan Reynolds, if you're a fan of Jodie Comer, like, it's got a really great cast, really great storyline, great humor, and it's just incredibly heartwarming. I could not recommend this movie enough. All right, next, number 6. Shrek from 2001. So a mean lord exiles fairy tale creatures to the swamp of a grumpy ogre, Shrek, who must go on a quest and rescue a princess for the Lord in order to get his land back. So I've loved this movie ever since it originally came out. Like, it became an instant classic for me. Like, I just fell in love with it immediately. I love everything about it. Like, the voice acting, Mike Myers as Shrek, Eddie Murphy as Donkey, Cameron Diaz as Princess Fiona, John Lithgow as Lord Farquaad. Like, the voice actors are so incredible. Like, great cast in general, but they do an exceptional job in this movie. Also, the overall plot as well as the storyline. I really love how this movie blends genres. Like, it's fantasy, it's humor, it's a little bit of rom-com. It's also animated. I think this was my first animated movie that wasn't Disney at the time that I saw this. I was a big Disney girl when I was really little, like Disney Princess and all that kinds of stuff. So when I first saw this, it was like, animated movies can come outside of Disney? But yeah, that blew my little mind at the time. And speaking of the storyline, I absolutely loved all of the characters as well as the character development in general. Like, Shrek starts off being super grumpy and doesn't want anyone around him, and he slowly starts to soften throughout the movie. Also, Eddie Murphy as Donkey, like, I just loved his character so, so much. Like, he was so hilarious. Like, what's to expect because Eddie Murphy is voicing him, but still, like, he was just so funny, and I feel like he and Shrek as a duo are like icons at this point. And I also really loved Cameron Diaz as Princess Fiona. I think that's another aspect about how I was a little bit mind blown when I had watched this movie for the first time, because before seeing this animated movie, I'd only seen Disney princess movies. So getting to see Princess Fiona kind of like fight off this gang of ruffians at one point in this movie just had me like, what? Princesses can fight too? Like, I was young at the time, but you know what I mean. I was just like blown away. I was like, oh my God, like she can fight? Like, that's so cool. So I just like, she was kind of like the first like little girl boss moment that I remember having. And I really loved her character. And I loved the way that she kind of like related to Shrek in a way. And just like the overall character development in this movie is so great. And the characters are really well written as well. And I just really love that third act and ending. And just like, it's just such a great movie. Again, like there's humor, fantasy, a little bit of rom-com thrown in there, and it's got so much, and it's so great. And in addition, it's got an incredible soundtrack. Like, it came out in 2001, so it is the essential 2000 soundtrack. I just love it so much. There are certain songs that I just hear on the radio, and I instantly think of Shrek because I have listened to that soundtrack infinite amount of times. So if somehow you've never seen Shrek in your life, you absolutely need to see it because it is so cute. It is so wholesome. It's funny. There's fantasy, a little bit of rom-com thrown in there. And it's just such a heartwarming story. And again, it'll make you laugh. It'll make you feel all fuzzy and warm inside. And it's such a great movie and I couldn't recommend it enough. All right, next, number 5. Brothers Grimm from 2005. Folklore collectors and con artists Jake and Will Grimm travel from village to village pretending to protect townsfolk from enchanted creatures and performing exorcisms. However, they are put to the test when they encounter a real magical curse in a haunted forest with real magical beings, requiring genuine courage. So this is another one of those movies that I watched infinitely on my portable DVD player when I was a teen. Like, I loved this movie so much and still do, obviously. Quick side note about me, I've always loved horror, but when I was younger, I was obsessed with fantasy. And this was one of the first movies that I saw that kind of blended the two for me, and I absolutely adored it for that. Like, it's the Brothers Grimm, so you've got classic fairy tales, you've got humor, there's also the brotherly aspect of these two brothers traveling together. And then there are also horror elements in a fantastical way where the enchanted forest actually does some really crazy and creepy things. And I remember watching it when I was younger and I was like genuinely terrified. And even still, I could put this on tonight and I could still be a little bit creeped out by some scenes. And I just really love the overall storyline and the plot. And all of the fantasy aspects and the special effects are really good, especially for the time period. And I also really loved the performances. Like Matt Damon and Heath Ledger, like they're obviously amazing. And also Lena Headey is in this as well as Peter Stormare. I absolutely love his character in this movie, by the way. He has this ridiculous French accent that I absolutely adore. He refers to the Brothers Grimm as the Grimmy. I'll never forget, there's this part where he's yelling after the Brothers Grimm because they're escaping, and then he yells, "Don't lose sight of the Glimmy!" There's also this part where a bird pisses him off and he starts accosting it, and he's like, "I kill you and I take all of your eggs and I smash them!" I think that's also one of the best parts about his accent is because it's French, but it's also not specifically French. Like, you really don't know what kind of accent it is, but it's so fun and I just love it. And also the soundtrack is absolutely gorgeous. In addition to being kind of a nerd with fantasy and horror and all that kinds of stuff, I was a huge soundtrack person. So back in the day, I would go see a movie in theaters and then I would immediately go to Target and then purchase the soundtrack on CD, and then I would put it on my boombox and I would listen to it endlessly until I could pinpoint exactly what part of the movie we're at when I was listening to the score. So in addition to this movie being constantly on replay on my portable DVD player, I also had its score playing on my boombox nonstop. And I feel like this movie is rather underrated just in general. I don't feel like I hear enough people talk about it at all. It's really great. Like I mentioned, the cast is fantastic. I thought the storyline was great. And similar to my other picks, I just really love when a movie kind of blends several genres together. Like there's humor, there's a little bit of rom-com in there as well, and it's heavily aspected on fantasy, also with a little bit of horror sprinkled in there. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I highly recommend this movie. It probably slid under a lot of people's radars, and it's really good. Again, I don't hear enough people talk about it, so I highly recommend it. You should totally check it out, especially if you're like me and you're a big fan of fantasy and horror. You should totally watch this. All right, number 4. The Princess Bride from 1987. So in this enchanting fairy tale, the beautiful Princess Buttercup and the dashing Wesley must overcome staggering odds to find happiness amid six-fingered swordsmen, murderous princes, Sicilians, and rodents of unusual size. But even death can't stop these true lovebirds from triumphing. So this is an absolute classic for a very good reason, and I absolutely love this movie so much. I was introduced to it when I was really young, and ever since then I've been completely enamored. Similar to so many other picks that I've mentioned, I really love the blending of different genres. Again, there's humor, there's fantasy, there's action, there's adventure, there's mystery, there's murder and plot twists. Like, I love this movie so much. I also love that the entire plot point is this young boy is being read a fairy tale by his grandfather, and then The Princess Bride is the story within the book. So it's a movie within a book, and I love that so much, and it's so creative. Also, all of the characters, and I mean every single one of these characters, are absolutely incredible and so well written. Everyone has their own comedic line, everyone has their moment, and I just think that they are so well written, and I love every single character. There is not 1 second of this movie that I would cut, or one character I would cut. Like, it's just so fantastic. Carrie Elwes is so great as Wesley, and I absolutely loved Robin Wright as Princess Buttercup, and the two of them have such incredible chemistry from the very first scene. And I love the two of them so much, and you're constantly rooting for them throughout this movie, and they're just such great characters to root for. There's also this kidnapping trio that I really love. Inigo Montoya, Fezzik, and Vizzini. Vizzini's the one that's constantly yelling, "Inconceivable!" I love those three so much, and they're so quotable. In fact, this entire movie is so incredibly quotable. I also really love how much story we get in this movie. I feel like in some movies, there's maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 plot points, whereas this movie I feel like has like 5 to 10, something crazy like that. They're constantly moving, and the storyline is so robust. And you're constantly on the edge of your seat. You're wondering what happens next to these characters. You're wondering what's happening next in the storyline. And I love every aspect about the story. And I mentioned this before, but the characters are so well written, so there's not one moment that you feel bored. And speaking of characters, Billy Crystal has a very small role as Miracle Max, and I absolutely love him and his wife in this. And I could literally talk all day about this movie, so I'll just say again, I love the genre mixture of romance, fantasy, comedy, adventure. Like, so much is going on in this movie. It's so great. And if you somehow have not seen this movie yet, I could not recommend this enough, especially if you're a fan of fantasy. All right, we're down to the final 3. And number 3 is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I know I'm kind of cheating. So young hobbit Frodo Baggins, after inheriting a mysterious ring from his uncle Bilbo, must leave his home in order to keep it from falling into the hands of its evil creator. So yeah, I know I'm cheating a bit. This is 3 movies in 1 slot, but come on, the trilogy. Like, how can I just pick one of these amazing 3 movies? I suppose if you were to force me to pick, I'd pick Fellowship, but I just love every single one of these 3 movies. The way Peter Jackson brought this world to life in these films is just absolutely incredible. Like, the costume design and the set designs, the special effects, like everything. Like, the casting as well. Like, Elijah Wood as Frodo and Sean Astin as Samwise. Like, I absolutely loved those two, and like their friendship throughout these 3 movies. Incredible, and one of the most heartwarming aspects about these movies. I also really love the other hobbits, Merry and Pippin, that come along with Frodo and Sam on this adventure. Also, the great Ian McKellen as Gandalf. I'll never forget this line that Gandalf says, I think it was to Pippin, where he accidentally knocks something over when they're trying to be quiet, and Gandalf turns to him and goes, "Fool of a toque." I need to start using that insult more often in real life. And then, of course, the incredible Andy Serkis as Gollum. That man's talent will never cease to amaze me. Like, I know I'm supposed to be talking about Lord of the Rings, but my God, is Andy Serkis incredible. Like, he is just so great, literally in everything I've seen. Like, his motion caption has transformed some movies, and it's just I'm just blown away by his talent. Like, he is an absolute incredible actor. I would love to meet him one day, just to like tell him how amazed I am by him. And like so many of these other movies on this list, I could talk all day about this trilogy, but I feel like a lot of people have already either seen it or know about it. So I'll just say, like, it's an incredible fantasy trilogy, like absolutely epic. It should never be remade. It's perfect. And I love it so much. Fellowship, I think, is my favorite. But again, Two Towers and Return of the King are so incredible. It's just all one long movie in a way. And I love it so much. And it will forever have a special place in my heart as a fantasy lover. All right, next, number 2. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets from 2002. Cars fly, trees fight back, and a mysterious house elf comes to warn Harry Potter at the beginning of his second year at Hogwarts. Adventure and danger await when blood writing on a wall announces the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. To save Hogwarts will require all of Harry, Ron, and Hermione's magical abilities and courage. So I mentioned earlier when I was younger, I was a big fan of horror, but I was absolutely obsessed with fantasy. Well, the reason for that was because I was completely enamored with the Harry Potter series. I remember being introduced to the first book when I was about 10 years old, and I fell absolutely head over heels in love with that book series. And the Harry Potter series meant so much more to me than just being a really great story, which it absolutely is. But when I was younger, not to throw a pity party or anything, I didn't have a ton of friends when I was in middle school. So in a lot of ways, Harry, Ron, and Hermione were my best friends during that time that I had no friends. So I just continuously reread the series. I remember I lost count at 15, but I have reread the Harry Potter series so many times. And it's true, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are some of my closest friends because they have been there for me through thick and thin. And it's been a couple of years since I've read the books, but I bet you could quiz me and I'd get the answers right. Like, I just know the Harry Potter series like the back of my hand. Like, it's just second nature to me. But yeah, Harry, Ron, and Hermione definitely became my friends, especially during the hard times. And I feel like they were there for me when a lot of people weren't. And it just was very much a safety blanket. It was very much a comfort for me. Like, whenever I was upset or unhappy, like, I would just dive back into Hogwarts and I would go on an adventure with Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And it saved me from a lot of really, dark, unhappy stuff. So yeah, Harry, Ron, and Hermione saved me in a lot of ways from unhappiness and just general middle school, young adult life that isn't great, That book series will forever have a special place in my heart. Like, I am forever grateful for J.K. Rowling to have written that series because that is one of my favorite things on this planet. And because of that, I was so excited for the Harry Potter movies to come out. I remember rereading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and literally finishing it in the movie theater right before the movie started on its premiere. And so I feel like that's a good segue into me talking about how the first 2 movies are the best in my opinion because they stick to the source material the most of all of the movies. Like, the director of the first 2 movies, Chris Columbus, did the Harry Potter universe to absolute perfection. Like, I absolutely loved his vision. Like, he put so much detail into making sure that the book to movie ratio was almost perfect. I feel like outside of Peeves the Poltergeist just completely being missing from the movies, he did an absolute perfect job conveying the book to movie ratio. I know this might be a little bit controversial, but after the first 2 movies, I could kind of take or leave the rest of the movie series. And that's just me being kind of nitpicky. I think the movies are gorgeous and what they do provide is absolutely great. It's just the amount of times I've read that series. Like, I know what goes in and out of those stories, like, easily. So when I watch one of the movies and they either change it or they change the tone, or they skip a lot of little small subplots, it makes me so angry just because I know that the audience of the movie would love all these little subplots that are in the book that they're missing out on. And again, like, for example, Peeves the Poltergeist has some incredible moments in the book, and he just is completely missing from the movie. Like, it breaks my heart if I'm being honest. But yeah, sorry for the long tangent, but the rest of the series after the first 2 movies, like, I can enjoy, but I really have to like sit back and like not take them seriously as Harry Potter movies because in a lot of ways they kind of aren't. And I feel like Chris Columbus, the director of the first 2 movies, did those movies perfection, and everything else felt like it was Harry Potter adjacent, if that makes sense. Okay, enough of me talking about the Harry Potter books. I literally could talk days, weeks about the Harry Potter books to movies. Like, literally don't even get me started. I need to cut myself off now. But back to Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the movie. Okay, so this is my favorite movie out of the entire series. If you're curious, my favorite book out of the series is Prisoner of Azkaban, but this is my favorite movie of the series. Second favorite book, by the way. Okay, seriously, I need to stop talking about the books. But I love this movie so much for so many reasons. Like I said, Chris Columbus is the director still, so he is just absolutely perfect bringing the book to life. The entire cast, by the way, like the entire series has an incredible cast. Like Daniel Radcliffe as Harry, Rupert Grint as Ron, Emma Watson as Hermione. I thought they were just absolutely fantastic, and getting to watch them grow up in the series was so charming. Also, Maggie Smith as Professor McGonagall, Alan Rickman as Snape. Alan Rickman. Also, the entire adult cast is absolutely incredible. I can't even start naming them because I feel like every single name in this movie is worth mentioning. Like, I just love the entire cast that came into this Harry Potter series. Also, there are some incredible creature designs in this movie. I don't know if this is like necessarily spoiling it, but there's a giant spider and a giant snake in this movie that look so incredible. And I love that it's a combination of CGI and actual practical effects. And they just look so good and genuinely creepy at times. And this is just another one of those movies that I had constantly playing on my portable DVD player. Like, I just religiously had this nonstop playing. And also the soundtrack, like the entire Harry Potter series is another that I went out and bought the soundtrack and just listened to it an infinite amount of times until I could tell you exactly what was happening in the movie as we were listening to the soundtrack. And I think my favorite score out of this entire movie is the Gilderoy Lockhart score. Like, he has his own little melody and it's kind of like charming and whimsical and a little bit dramatic, and I just absolutely love it. I can hear it in my head right now as I'm talking about it. But enough of me being a huge Harry Potter nerd. This is a really great movie. It's beautiful all around, great cast, great performances, great characters, set design, creature design, cool battle, great soundtrack. Like, it's perfect, and I recommend you watch the entire Harry Potter series, but this absolutely is worth your time, especially if you are a Harry Potter fan. These first two movies are perfection. All right, we're down to number one. I'm curious if you guys guessed this one, but I feel like I don't talk about this enough on social media, so I don't think anyone's gonna get it. We're the Millers from 2013. So a veteran pot dealer, David, creates a fake family out of his neighbors as part of his plan to move a huge shipment of weed into the US from Mexico. I laugh because it sounds so fucking ridiculous. So this is one of those movies where I feel like it was just made for me, you know? Like, I just love every single thing about it. The humor just works perfectly for me. I absolutely love the entire cast. The storyline is hilarious and chaotic. I love how there's comedy and adventure, there's mystery and stress, and I love everything about it. I also love that it was set in like 2013 in Colorado, and this is an illegal drug dealer. Like, it's just funny because in today's age, like, Colorado is like one of like the places to go for cannabis, whereas like in 2013 it was still illegal. Like, that's crazy to think about. Like, I just love watching this movie, and it's like, yes, the olden days whenever you had to deal with a drug dealer to get cannabis. Don't miss those days. And yes, I partake, okay? But anyway, yeah, like the storyline, I love that the entire plot line surrounds like cannabis and illegal drug deals, and then going into Mexico, like, that doesn't sound dangerous at all. And like I said, the entire cast is so incredible. Like, Jason Sudeikis as David is so great. I love Jennifer Aniston as Rose. Will Poulter as Kenny. Like, I absolutely love him so much. He's actually in Midsommar, and I've done a review on Midsommar, and I had to mention this movie in that review because I love this movie and his character so much. I think Will is a fantastic actor. He's so funny. Also, Emma Roberts as Casey, the homeless girl that David just picks up, and it's like, you're my daughter now, so we can be this fake family. And I just love the dynamic between these four. Like, David is like the ringleader. He's the one that's trying to get to Mexico to do his job and get the stuff back to America. And these other people are just in it for the money. Like, oh, I'm gonna get paid out of this. So yeah, but like, they aren't taking the job too seriously. So David is like having to herd and like police them and tell them what to do and like, don't say that, act like this. Like, it's so funny. I also love that Ed Helms is like the boss drug dealer over David. Like, I still remember him from The Office, so it's really funny seeing him be like kingpin drug dealer. He's got some great lines as well, as always. He's so funny. Also, Nick Offerman shows up in this movie and his character is absolutely hilarious. Like, he's hilarious in anything, but I love his character too. And the movie is just so heartwarming as well. Like, the four of them bicker and banter and argue all the time, but you can tell that a bond is starting to form throughout the story. And I love their relationship, and the character development as a whole is really great. And the chaotic storyline and all of the humor just make this movie so perfect. And it is my ultimate absolute go-to whenever I'm having a bad day or just wanting to laugh, something comfy, cozy to put on. Like, it makes me laugh. It makes me feel understood. It's surrounding cannabis, and it's just got a great cast, and the story's really great. And I love everything about this movie. I could not recommend it more. It's one of the best comedy movies I've ever seen in my life. And again, like I said earlier, it just feels like it was a movie made for me. Like, it just feels like it has Lauren writ all over it. I just feel like it's one of my favorite comedy movies of all time. I love it so much, and I could not recommend it more. All right, those are my favorite non-horror comfort movies. Like I said earlier, they're very special to me in their own way. I love that they can all make me laugh and warm my heart. And without fail, after watching one of these movies, I am permanently uplifted for the rest of the day. And there's a heartwarming quality to each of these movies that just melts my heart. So what's your favorite movie out of my list? Also, what's your top 10 non-horror comfort movies? Let me know in the comments. Also, this is just a reminder that I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. So if you're interested in following me on those and you haven't already, the links are in my description box below. And as always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so Black Phillip knows you'd like to live deliciously. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you again very soon in the next video. Bye!